years, it's been fun watching Charlie Brown during the holidays. The Charlie Brown Thanksgiving special, of course, has the famous scene where Lucy talks Charlie Brown into kicking a football. Lucy offers to hold the ball, and Charlie Brown backs up as far as he can, then he takes off running just as hard as he can. And when he reaches the ball, Lucy pulls the football away, and Charlie Brown goes flying through the air and lands on his back. He must know in his heart that she's going to do the same thing, and year after year we watch it as Thanksgiving. But despite that, he keeps trying. Theodore Roosevelt once said that the only man who never makes a mistake is the man who never does anything. I've heard it said it's better to aim high and miss than aim low and hit. So is all failure bad? The more I look at Scripture, the more I see people whose ministry in the eyes of the world may be considered a failure, but in God's eyes, they were looked upon very differently. John the Baptist was beheaded in prison. Jeremiah escaped Jerusalem with only his life. Moses did not enter into the promised land. John was placed in exile on the Isle of Patmos. Jesus Christ himself was homeless, and his preaching often drove people to say he's crazy. Could it be that God's definition of success and failure is not measured the same way as we see it? With Christ, success is not performance, it's surrender. I'm not saying things should not be done with excellence. Excellence ought to be a habit, not a special act. You are what you repeatedly do. Thus, our biggest regrets in life will come from not trying, not in failing. There are 3 positive results from failure. Number 1, failure makes me more dependent on God. Our failures can be used as stepping stones to a more meaningful relationship with God. When we hit rock bottom, it's those very stones that the Lord can use to build a new foundation and ultimately something that is very pleasing to Him. 2, failure makes us humble. In Numbers 12:3, Moses is described as a most humble man. Now, Moses had failures, but he also had successes. Thomas Edison, he performed 10,000 experiments before succeeding in producing a storage battery. Abraham Lincoln ran for public office on 7 occasions and failed. Albert Einstein was once told he was a poor student and would not amount to much. Humility brought success. In contrast, let's read Luke chapter 18, verse 10 to 14. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank you that I'm not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. And the tax collector, standing afar off, would not so much as raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. I heard a speaker share one time, our servant's towel needs to be bigger than our ego. Ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. Pride is the burden of foolish people. The third positive result from failure is failure makes me appreciate the grace and forgiveness of God. Ephesians 1:7, in him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins according to the riches of his grace. Hebrews 4:16, let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. I'll close with this. When you've failed over and over and feel you've exhausted all possibilities, remember this, with God you have not. Eagle's Nest, be safe.